I do have to tell you guys this. I mean, obviously, we're going to be here for the Thursday night game, and there's a lot of start sit decisions that we need to make. So, we are going to answer plenty of start sit questions for Thursday night. And the other thing I'll say about this really quick is that I do hope that we continue our string of really strong Thursday night games. Like, we've been pretty blessed with some good Thursday night games this year. So, I don't think this one looks that good on paper. I mean, Jackson Dart is not going to be working with that much tonight. He's obviously got Darius Slayton missing. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is missing as well. So I do worry about like how good this game really is going to be. I'm hoping that it's going to be good because we've had a lot of good games. But the big thing I think I want to make sure I lead with today before we answer questions is that I do have AJ Brown moving up my rankings. Like, if you guys are members at fsroundup.com, you can see my rankings, and AJ Brown has emerged into my top 30. He has emerged into my top 30 wide receiver rankings, so I do have more confidence with him than I typically would in most other weeks. I just have a feeling about this game tonight that AJ Brown is going to do well. He's going to get in the end zone tonight because it's already a great matchup, number one. And number two, he was really close last week, obviously. So I think I definitely had to move up AJ Brown. He moved up several spots. And again, we'll go through some questions. I bet there's going to be AJ questions tonight because if the site is any indication, we've seen a lot of AJ Brown polls this particular week. In fact, let's see if we can see the amount of polls that we've had on AJ Brown. One of the features that's really great on FS Roundup is you can link up your team and you can kind of see how many polls have been run on a certain player and kind of what the community thinks about these players overall. So let's see if we can find AJ Brown and the amount of polls that have been started with AJ. Well, let's just look over the last couple of days. So AJ Brown, there was a poll 2 hours ago about him. So that's one. There was a poll about... Okay, so there's only been one poll today. So, yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see what amount of people go with AJ Brown this week over certain options, but let's go ahead and just get into some questions. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. And again, utilize the start sit polls on our site. This is a great way to engage with the community, get their opinions on what you should do with your positions and what you should do with your decisions. And as well, go help out other people with their decisions as well. Alias, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here tonight. Darter Penix, leaning Penix. Oh, yeah, so the other thing about that is my quarterback and tight end rankings not yet finalized on the site yet. Dart is going to be a tough play tonight because I think that, again, the Philly matchup on a short week, typically what we've seen, defenses have not performed very well on Thursday night matchups this year, and I think that makes a lot of sense, but Dart just has nothing to work with. So it looks a lot similar to last week, right? With the 49ers and Mac Jones didn't have much to work with, but Mac Jones ended up doing fantastic in fantasy. So I have a feeling I'm going to tell you to bench Dart in this situation, and he's going to end up going off. Because with the other hand, you've got Penix coming off a bye week. They're well rested. They don't have any major injuries. And they're playing the Bills at home on Monday night. So they're going to want to show out. And the Bills defense is just more beatable. So all logic is going to tell me to play Penix over Dart this week. And I'm going to tell you to do that because I can't really find anything in me. It's not even a gut feeling. Like, I don't have a gut feeling that Dart is going to do well tonight. Like, I don't think he will do particularly well tonight, so I'm going to tell you to play Penix in this situation. So, yeah, there's nothing that's pulling me towards Dart, but you watch. I have a feeling Dart could do well tonight against all odds, but I'm not going to lean that way. So I'll go Penix. Appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here as always. That is how you get your question answered. You could jump the line by doing a super chat. Tyler Sperry, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here as well, Tyler. Devonta Smith, Romeo Doubs, Godwin, Kendrick Bourne, pick 2. So Godwin is going to be one of my picks. The one thing I did notice, he was kind of missing practice this week. Let's see if we can get an update today. So he missed yesterday. I saw that. Let's see if we can get an upgrade or an update. Fibula injury. He was absent from practice again on Thursday, so he may end up sitting in this game, which would be interesting because that would not be great. If Godwin plays, I'll still play him because I love the matchup versus San Francisco this week. I think it's a good one to take advantage of. So I'll assume he plays, and I'll say he's one of them. And the other one is going to be Devonta Smith for me. Look, the matchup tonight is great. Like, one of these two Philly wide receivers is going to do really well. And, you know, the initial reason for me ranking AJ outside of the top 30 was because of the deteriorating chemistry with him and Jalen Hurts. And I don't think it's going to get much better over the duration of the season, but I do think this matchup tonight is fantastic. So, like, my gut is telling me that A.J. Brown's going to have a good night, but, like, logically, I think Devonta Smith is the better option between the two this week. Now, again, if you missed it, I did move up A.J. Brown in my wide receiver rankings. Literally just a couple hours ago, I decided to make the move. So if you remember on fsroundup.com, you can see my updated rankings if you have a premium subscription. I do worry about the pass catching upside on a weekly basis in Philly, but I do still think that it is a good opportunity to take. So Devonta Smith and Godwin would be my two picks if Godwin plays. If Godwin doesn't play, I'll pick Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne drastically moved up to my rankings as well. You can see that again on fsroundup.com if you are a premium subscriber, how much he moved up in the rankings with the news that Ricky Pearsall is not going to play in this game. So by all indications, it looked like it's going to be Juwan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne again. Or not again, but, you know, this week it looks like that's going to be the case because Jennings has practiced every day this week so far. So Jennings is going to play, but Bourne is also, you know, again, last week I highlighted after that game on Thursday night, the chemistry that was built in with Mac Jones and Juwan Jennings is a big deal. And what we learned, I think it was today actually, is that Brock Purdy is probably not going to play in this game. So it will be Mac Jones again. So I do think that Kendrick Bourne is a really good opportunity. And realistically, like the Packers, the thing with them this week is they're going to beat the brakes off the Bengals in all likelihood. So if Dobbs doesn't get out to, you know, getting 2 touchdowns early in this game, well, he's not going to have that much opportunity to do so in the fourth quarter, right? So he's got this limited window to where he can capitalize on fantasy points, and it's not going to be like the Cowboys game because they're not going to need to throw deep into the fourth and in overtime. So I'll go with Kendrick Bourne over Romeo Doubs. He's my last option. So again, if Godwin plays, I'll play Godwin and Devonta Smith, but if Godwin doesn't play, I will play Devonta Smith and Kendrick Bourne. So either way, Devonta Smith needs to be in your lineup tonight, and put him in the wide receiver position. Do not put him in the flex. Don't put any Thursday night player in the flex. Appreciate the super chat, Tyler. Again, it's always good to see you. And that is how you jump the line. You can jump the line and get your question answered immediately by doing a super chat. But till then, we'll just go through top to bottom. Jose Valdez, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Or not the super chat. Appreciate your question and you being in here tonight. Waddle or Devonta Smith? So this is one I'll easily go with Waddle because I do think that Waddle is like what I saw last week from Waddle encouraged me because he was getting he's starting to be used like Tyreek Hill was, and that was really the thing that I was looking for with the Miami Dolphins is, you know, Tyreek Hill for the majority of the season was the only one being used down the field, and Waddle's catches were all at the line of scrimmage or like just beyond that. Well, last week he gets 9 targets and then like a bunch of downfield work. So I feel like his role is stabilizing to the point where I think he's a really good wide receiver too in fantasy football. One that you can rely on for solid production, like 12 to 15 points per game, but also one who has a 20-plus point ceiling. So Waddle for me is the better play because Devonta Smith, again, like I don't think that I don't think that both Philly wide receivers do fantastic tonight. I think one of them does really good and the other one doesn't, and it's risky because I think that A.J. Brown could be his night tonight. I do think it's possible. So I'll go with Jalen Waddle over Devonta Smith. Alias, appreciate the super chat again. Hampton on IR, got to decide between Kendre Miller, Haskins, Vidal, and Isaiah Davis. Yeah, those are rough options, man. I got to be honest, man. I think that so the Chargers running back situation is obviously going to be, I think, the biggest question that has the potential to get answered this week because, to tell you the truth, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I really, really don't. And so my whole concern with this is that, like, on one hand, you've got a running back who I think has been kept on the roster by Jim Harbaugh for the past couple of years because he's a pass blocking back, and that would be Hassan Haskins, who I think that the only reason that he's been kept on the roster is because of his pass blocking opportunities and his ability to do that, but he's never been used as a true running back out of the backfield as far as getting an opportunity with the ball in his hands, and I think it was evident the other day by averaging less than 3 yards per carry. So I do think that there's opportunity here for Haskins, obviously, that opened up. But, Kamani Vidal looked better on a per-touch basis last week. And I logically think that he's going to be the running back that they go with the majority of the time. But at the same time, I will say this, Vidal, they did cut him earlier in the offseason. So it doesn't, it wouldn't surprise me either way if they decided to go with Haskins as their lead guy, but the matchup is so good at the same time that I want one of those options. So I'm going to lean with both of them over Kendre Miller and Isaiah Davis. Look, the thing with Isaiah Davis last week, what we saw is that this backfield became Breece Hall's. Like, Isaiah Davis was in on 33 snaps, sure, but like he had 5 opportunities in this game. 1 on the ground and 4 through the air. So, like, Breece Hall, it is his backfield. So I'm not really worried about picking Isaiah Davis as one of them. I'll pick one of the Chargers backs because their offense is better and they're going to have more opportunities than Davis. And then at the same time, I think that with Kendre Miller, the opportunity is there, and their offense is actually not bad. But I will say this: I think that Kendre Miller, the matchup this week versus New England is not my favorite. And again, I don't think their offense is as good as the Chargers. So I'm going to lean with Vidal, who is my, again, projection to lead the backfield in Los Angeles this week. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Haskins because they have kept him on the roster. They view him as a valuable asset, obviously, so they may just say, hey, here you go. Here's 15 carries in this game. See what you could do. But just based on what he's looked like over the years with the ball in his hands, he's not that good of a player. I think Vidal looks better on a per-touch basis, so I'm going to go with Kamani Vidal. Appreciate the super chat. Saints fan, appreciate the super chat. Love watching your videos. I appreciate that. Definitely love having you here. Seahawks defense or Eagles defense? Achane, Walker, or Javonte Williams is running back this weekend. So let's start with the defense pick because I do think that this one is good to talk about. So I've been on here the past couple of weeks discussing the problem that I have with Thursday night defenses. So on Thursday night this year, there's been a lot of scoring, and I think it makes sense because if you think about the defense, like the defense goes through particularly a rough time on a short week. Because they get banged up, right? And it's like, if you think that a defense like the Eagles is not susceptible to that, I would point you back to the Seahawks a couple of weeks ago when they gave up a lot of points against the Arizona Cardinals. And the Seahawks were a great play in theory that day, but they didn't end up being a great play at the end of the day. They were an okay play, but they weren't great. The good thing with the Eagles tonight is that they do have the Giants on tap, and the Giants are in this position to where you can't really project many points for them when they're missing Malik Neighbors, and now they're missing Darius Slayton, who I think was their wide receiver one last week. So I don't see much greatness from them tonight. I think they're going to struggle to move the ball. And so even if they can get like 2 touchdowns, I think they could get opportunities based off turnovers, and they could sack Jackson Dart a bunch tonight. So I'm leaning with the Eagles because, again, the problem with the Seahawks is not that their defense isn't great. I think it is great. And they're also inside my top 12 with the Eagles, but they're in a different tier. And the reason they are is because the Jags offense does look functional. And if you take out the interception, if you didn't watch the Monday night game, Trevor Lawrence threw an interception in that game, but the reality was that was a clear pass interference. I mean, it actually wasn't by rule. Like, it really wasn't by rule. Like, I'm not a Chiefs fan. That actually wasn't a pass interference by rule because it was within 5 yards. So it wasn't by rule a pass interference, but like he clearly like bumped him and got in his way and threw off the route. And Trevor Lawrence was telegraphing his receiver. So he made a mistake, but realistically, outside of that, Jacksonville has looked pretty good offensively. So I do worry about that matchup more than I worried about it tonight. So I'll go with the Eagles defense tonight. And then your running back situation, you need 2. So it's Achane, Walker, Javonte. You've got to play Javonte for sure, and I would say you've got to play Achane too. Not that I don't think that Walker has playability, but the reality is that his startability and like how he does is completely entirely dependent on whether or not he gets in the end zone. And Charbonnet is a goal line back for them, and they continue to split work. So it's like you can never count on that with Kenneth Walker. Whereas with Achane, he gets so much pass catching upside, and the defense that he's playing this week versus the Chargers is weak. So Achane doesn't go on your bench. Neither does Javonte at this point. So I would go with Javonte and Achane. Appreciate the super chat. Steezy, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Do I start A.J. Brown against the Giants secondary? Or Cortland Sutton against Sauce? Stuck between the two. So here's a great litmus test for A.J. Brown, right? Because if some of you may have missed it, some of you may be new to the live stream by a couple of minutes. So I started out the stream tonight by saying that A.J. Brown has moved up in my rankings. If you are a premium member at FS Roundup, you could see exactly where he moved to in my rankings. And that's the benefit. Like, you could see live rankings updates because I make changes to my rankings several times a week. So A.J. Brown originally was not inside my top 30. He is now. So I did move up A.J. Brown. Now, without revealing exactly where he is, I will tell you that he is not below Cortland Sutton. So I will take Sutton very easily in this one while acknowledging a couple things. Number one, the first thing I'll acknowledge is that A.J. Brown, I did say the reason I moved him up is because I think he can go nuclear. Because with A.J. Brown, that's always possible. Like, he will always have that ability to go nuclear. And so you have to factor in the matchup tonight is really good versus the Giants. And last week, he just got overthrown. He could have had a really big week last week. So A.J. Brown is always a threat. Number two, I'm going to say this, and I've said this a couple times this year, and it's been met with utter outrage. Sauce Gardner is not one of the corners that I take into account as someone you need to watch for when it comes to wide receiver matchups. And for those of you who know my channel, I talk a lot about cornerbacks in the league that you need to watch out for wide receivers. Garrett Wilson's playing one of them this weekend. Garrett Wilson is taking on Pat Surtain. That's a problem for Garrett Wilson, especially with bad quarterback play. Derek Stingley in Houston, he's one of those corners. Quinyon Mitchell in Philly is fastly becoming one of those corners. Well, last week, Quinyon Mitchell could not contain Cortland Sutton for that game. Cortland Sutton basically had 100 yards in that game. He had 99 yards in that game, and I came away very impressed with Sutton last week. So this week, he plays a corner who I think is and I cannot stress this enough, vastly overrated. Because the difference between, think about Trayvon Diggs, right? Trayvon Diggs is a corner for the Dallas Cowboys, brother of Stephon Diggs. And he's a corner that a lot of people years ago were like, oh, this is a top-tier corner in the NFL right now. And I always disagreed because he's not a press corner. He is a corner that is going to make plays on the ball, and that's valuable, but press corners are different than ball hawking corners, right? Pat Surtain doesn't have too many career interceptions, but that guy is like glued to a receiver. He's glued to the wide receiver one every week, and he makes it very difficult for them to have great days in fantasy. Sauce Gardner is a playmaker. He's not Pat Surtain. He doesn't stick to the corner because he's too tall. He's too tall. So I think that I am not worried about this sudden matchup with Sauce Gardner this week. He looks really good. The Jets defense looks horrific. I have no fears when it comes to Sutton this week. I'm easily going to go with Sutton over A.J. Brown. Appreciate the super chat. Dante DeMora, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here as well. Pick 3 this week. Dowdle, Chase Brown, Rachaad White, Henderson, Devonta Smith. So I'm going to go with Dowdle as one of them, even if Chuba plays, which let's get an update on Chuba. Did he practice today? He did not participate in team drills today. That doesn't tell me if he practiced. Not in uniform. So yeah, he did not practice today. He's probably not going to play this week in fantasy. So even if Chuba did play, I would still play Dowdle out of these guys because I love the revenge game narrative for Dowdle this week. But Dowdle becomes a must start if Chuba is not there. So Chuba is one of them for sure. Rachaad White is one of them as well. I think Rachaad White's matchup versus the 49ers this week is also solid. And, I mean, he's not going to have Bucky Irving there as well. So, like, there's no thorn in his side. Because Sean Tucker, I do think he'll get more used this week than he did last week. But Rachaad White still is the clear lead back. And he is a good pass-catching back as well. And Tampa's offense is just great. So, yeah, I think those two guys are pretty obvious. And then really what it comes down to is Chase Brown, Henderson, and Devonta Smith. That's the toughest part of this is that they're all ranked close together if you look at FS Roundup and you're a premium member. By the way, all these numbers we're going through completely free on FS Roundup. If you haven't checked it out, you should. And the polling as well, the start sit polls, those are completely free too. So if you don't get your question answered here today, polling is completely free on the site. But the rankings are behind the premium subscription. So these guys are all really close in my rankings this week. And I do think that with two of those guys, I think the upside is really low. Like, all of them have a pretty low floor. I would say that Chase Brown, obviously, he's had nothing but floor games this year, and his floor has been extraordinarily low. But, you know, Travion, I've said this for the past couple of weeks, and I think people are actually on board with it because I haven't seen too much pushback, which is that, you know, the problem with Travion is that he hasn't looked very good on a per-touch basis this year. And so basically I'm at this point where it's like I can't really argue with New England not wanting to play him more. He hasn't looked good enough to be able to realistically make a case to eat more into Ramondre's workload, even though Ramondre is fumbling the ball. Like Travion Henderson on a per-touch basis has looked like a guy. He hasn't looked special. So I don't think that they're going to all of a sudden like give a huge uptick to his workload even without Gibson. So for me, it's Devonta Smith because he has easily the highest ceiling of the bunch, and I think just as low I think his floor is just as low as those other two guys. So I would go with Devonta Smith very easily because his matchup is the best, and I think that there's just as good of a bet that he has these, you know, as much involvement as those other two running backs. So I'll go Devonta Smith, Rico Dowdle, and Rachaad White. Appreciate the super chat. Good to see you in here, Dante. Oat Smasher, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Jackson Dart, Bryce Young, or Mac Jones. I'll play Dart over Bryce Young because I think Bryce Young is so bad. Even though they're playing the Cowboys this week, I know the matchup is in theory there, but Bryce Young, I just can't bring myself to play him. And I would never tell you guys to do something I wouldn't do. I would play Jackson Dart 100 times over Bryce Young this week, and most weeks too. The real question is Mac Jones, and you know the thing is, like, the matchup is very good for him as well. And I'm at this point where it's like, look, you can't, like, I did nothing but doubt him last year. I doubted him forever in Jacksonville when he got the opportunity, and he did nothing but prove me wrong every time, and I started doubting him again this year, and he's done nothing but prove me wrong. Mac Jones is a good quarterback. Like, I know it's not popular to say, especially after Monday night, but, like, I think he should be starting over Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville right now. I do. I think he's a better player. So, like, you know, I think that at this point I can't doubt Mac Jones. And, again, I love the matchup this week for him versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. And he's got one more weapon back, which is good, with Jawan Jennings. So, you know, he's going to be in a very similar position. They're coming off a long week. I think they've obviously had more time to prepare for Tampa than Tampa has had time to prepare for San Fran. So Mac Jones is my pick. I would pick Jackson Dart in a lot of situations, like if he was playing the Bears or if he was playing, you know, the Panthers or the Cowboys. But, like, he's playing the Eagles tonight on a short week with very few weapons. So, like, I'm not going to go with Dart tonight. I will go with Mac Jones. Appreciate the super chat. Nate Dogg, good to see you in here, man. Always good to see you. Appreciate the super chat. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday as well. Nate Dogg, pick one tight end and 3 flex. Tucker Kraft, Darren Waller, Mason Taylor, Romeo Doubs, DeAndre Swift, Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith. Do I drop Spears for Mooney, Hunt, or Tonjes? Okay, so let's pick our tight end first. Tucker Kraft, Darren Waller, or Mason Taylor. So Waller, you know, I was just doing a team breakdown before I went live tonight. Somebody has Darren Waller and Brock Bowers, and I was telling them, you know, you're in a good position right now because I think Bowers, they're doing the right thing with Bowers in Las Vegas right now, which is that they're not letting him play. I think that is the right move because clearly he's been bothered this year by the injury, and having Waller as your tight end too right now makes tons of sense because he has really high ceiling upside. Like, his athleticism is still there, and his size obviously is fantastic. So it's like, you know, he's going to be able to continue to maximize opportunities. And so I like the idea of playing Waller. Now, the problem, I know he didn't practice yesterday. I was kind of assuming it was rest. So let's see if he practiced today. Yeah, he practiced today. So he'll play. Waller's going to play. The question really is about, like, the question really is about Tucker Kraft, because Kraft goes through these bouts and stretches where, much like all the wide receivers in Green Bay, he becomes less important. But realistically, like, if you actually looked at his workload this year, it's been pretty consistent. 5 targets in week 4. He had 4 targets in week 3. He had 6 targets in week 2, and he had 4 targets in week 1. So, like, Kraft has been consistently involved, and the matchup this week for him is pretty sweet as well. Now, I said this with Dobbs, which is that, you know, you can't rule out the fact that there's a possibility, a strong one, that there's a strong possibility that the Packers get up to an early lead and then they just don't have to throw it as much. I think that's very possible, and you have to consider that. So that's definitely a consideration. And then you got Mason Taylor, who I think definitely based off targets is going to be involved, but the Broncos defense is a tough one. So those are all strong tight end options. I will tell you this. I'm going to rule out Mason Taylor, though, because I think the Jets are tough to rely on this week when they're playing the Broncos overseas. I don't like overseas matchups already for any NFL team, and especially when you're playing the Broncos defense. Like, I think that's a tough sell. So I'm going to rule out Mason Taylor this week, even though his target share is the strongest. it really comes down to whether I would play Waller or Kraft. And I got to tell you, Waller is definitely making a case for himself because he's been so dominant in the red zone this year. Again, my tight end rankings are not set in stone on the site yet. I've got Kraft over Waller, but they're very close right now. It's so tough, man. I'm leaning. My gut is telling me Waller. My gut really is telling me Darren Waller because I just think, man, when it comes to the upside, I think the upside right now, I think, is in Waller's favor. Like, he is, again, without Tyreek, it makes a huge difference because they have Waddle and they have him for downfield and red zone options. And with Tucker Kraft, there still is like 10,000 different options. Like, that's the really big thing that's making me lean towards Waller is that with Tucker Kraft, there's Romeo Doubs, there's Dontavian Wicks, there's Matthew Golden, who hasn't broken out yet. There's Josh Jacobs. Like, they have so many options, and Miami doesn't have that many. So Waller is going to continue to be involved over the middle of the field and down the field as well and in the red zone, like, pretty consistently. So I'm going to go with Waller this week over Tucker Kraft. But I will tell you that, like, your tight end options are so strong right now that, like, your three flex options, one of them could be a tight end because you're looking at Romeo Doubs, Swift, Cooper Kupp, and Devonta Smith. I'd play Devonta tonight, and I would put him in the wide receiver position. Do not put Devonta Smith in the flex. But I would play Smith. I would play would I play Romeo Doubs or Tucker Kraft? That's the toughest part. I'll play DeAndre Swift. I'll play Devonta Smith as well. And it comes down to Dobbs versus Tucker Kraft, and that's really tough. Here's my answer for it. So I'm going to play Kraft, and the reason is because I think that Tucker Kraft has been more involved on a weekly basis in their game plan than Romeo Doubs has. And I think that regardless of what wide receiver they choose to throw to, Tucker Kraft has had that stable workload that we were just showing on the screen on FSRoundup.com. Romeo Doubs could easily have 2 targets in this game. And I think that against the Bengals, it's clearly going to be a blowout. So I think that there's a small window here for these Packers pass catchers to be able to maximize upside. And I'll take Kraft's consistent involvement over Romeo Doubs' touchdown upside, which is certainly there. But I think that the involvement on a consistent basis is definitely favoring Kraft. So I'll go with Kraft, DeAndre Swift, and Devonta Smith as my flex options. Make sure to put Devonta Smith in the wide receiver spot. And then I will go with Darren Waller as my tight end. And then do you drop Spears for Mooney, Hunt, or Tonjes? I wouldn't drop him for Mooney. I wouldn't drop him for Kareem Hunt. And you've already got such strong tight end options that there's no need to drop him for Tonjes either. So I'll go ahead and stick with Spears because I do think he has upside. I really do. So I'll stick with Tyjae Spears. Appreciate the super chat. Do not spam the chat if you are doing that. I'll call you out by name. Alberts, do not spam the chat. Nobody likes it. Again, Nate Dogg, good to see you. Appreciate the super chat. J.E., appreciate the super chat. Start 3. Worthy, Adams, Wilson, QJ, and Thomas. Garrett Wilson will be in my lineup in all likelihood because he's still Garrett Wilson. I'll go with Devontae Adams too because I do really like his upside too. Against the Ravens, that's just a matchup that I would just imagine that Devontae's upside versus the Ravens is fantastic. So I'll go Devontae Adams, I'll go Garrett Wilson, and I will go with I'm my rankings would definitely say to play Worthy over Quentin Johnston. I'm having second thoughts only because of the fact that Worthy is still clearly being bothered by injury. I mean, was he limited or did he miss practice? He didn't practice with his shoulder and ankle injuries. So he's clearly not healthy right now. So I'm having second thoughts about Worthy right now. I will be honest with you. If he plays, it's going to be really hard for me to be able to like confidently say to bench him because he's clearly in this matchup that I want pieces in. Like Chiefs Lions, that's a matchup I want options in on. And so Worthy it's hard to bench him, but like at the same time, again, this injury is definitely concerning. So I'm gonna go ahead and say QJ because I'll play QJ over Brian Thomas only because of the upside. I think has just been there. Like his chemistry with Justin Herbert is just better than Trevor's chemistry with Brian Thomas Jr. So I will definitely go with QJ over Brian Thomas. And then, yeah, Adams and Wilson are locked in, but Worthy, it's tough, man, because I want to go with Worthy, and I think logic would tell me to go with Worthy if he plays, but, I mean, he's a Sunday night game. QJ is not a Sunday night game. If we don't get word about Xavier Worthy, you got to go with QJ, and even if he plays with these injuries, it's hard, man. I think I got to go with QJ, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, I mean, you've got good options. Those are good problems to have, but, like, I want to go with Worthy because of the matchup upside, but I'm not going to. So, yeah, I'll go Adams, Wilson, and QJ. Appreciate the super chat. John, appreciate the super chat. What's going on? Wan'Dale Robinson or Hollywood Brown? I'll go with Wan'Dale pretty easily because even, like, again, we were just kind of talking about Hollywood Brown, and Hollywood Brown is one of those guys that, or we weren't just talking about Hollywood, we were talking about Worthy, and Worthy obviously being questionable and maybe not playing in this game obviously is concerning. But I will say at the same time that I just can't trust Wanda. I just can't trust Hollywood Brown. Like, he's just one of those players that I'm like, yes, he can do good. And yes, he actually looked good against the Jags on Monday night. But at the same time, man, like, he just has moments where it's like, yeah, the opportunity, like, without Worthy for a couple weeks, the opportunity was there and he did nothing, basically. So it's like, how can I trust you? So I can't. And I'm not going to go with Hollywood because of that. Whereas with Wan'Dale, he's in this position to where they have no choice. They have no choice. Their wide receiver 2 is going to be Jalen Hyatt. Like, that is freaking crazy that Jalen Hyatt's going to be their wide receiver 2 tonight. The translation to that is that he's going, like, Wan'Dale is going to get like 10 targets in this game. It'll be him and Theo Johnson a ton tonight. So I would imagine that Wan'Dale Robinson gets so many targets that it's so hard to overlook. And for that reason, I'll go with Wan'Dale over Hollywood because Hollywood just is not a player I trust. Appreciate the super chat. Andrew Myers, appreciate the super chat. Hurts or Stafford? I need upside. You need upside, and it's, obviously going to be really tough to it's going to be really tough to tell you not to play Hurts because the upside definitely, I think, is with Hurts. Because, like, realistically, even though Stafford has done really well this year, the upside, if Hurts plays well, it's better than Stafford's. Like, what we've seen from Stafford, that's upside for him. And, like, that's no shame to Stafford because he has looked very good. Like 25 points last week, and then he had 27 points the week prior. So, like, he's had upside. Not debating that. But what I'm debating is that if Hurts has a good week, Hurts has 30-plus point upside. I don't think Stafford has that. Now, Stafford has a great matchup this week versus the Baltimore Ravens. So, on one hand, I really like that opportunity. But at the same time, man, I just think that the Giants, I don't know how they're able to keep pace with the Philadelphia Eagles, which could be good or bad. I can't bench Hurts tonight. I can't. I will tell you this, that Hurts is low enough in my rankings to where it's I could definitely see a world where Hurts does get not as good. I could see a world where Hurts definitely has a disappointing game, for sure. So I will say that it's more of a gut call if you really want to. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to ban this guy now. I don't care what you call me. You can call me whatever you want, but you're just annoying everybody else. So, yeah, I have to freaking ban you. Can I ban him? That's the question. Yeah, I don't know if I can ban this guy. Well, let's see if I can ban him. Yeah, let's ban this guy. Yeah, I'll add you as a moderator. How about that? I'm just going to put you in timeout for 24 hours. I don't care what you call me. You can call me whatever you want, but you're just annoying. You're just a moron. Just another Yahoo. So, whatever. Okay, so he's banned. Sorry that interrupted your question. So, the question is Hurts or Stafford, and what I was trying to say was that Hurts is a guy that I can see a world where he doesn't do well. And Stafford, in my rankings, is not far enough behind Hurts to where I would say it's clearly a go for Hurts. They're close enough to where it's okay, I could see a world where you could play Matt Stafford. I have no problem with playing Stafford. I'm not going to. My move is going to be to play Hurts. But yeah, I would definitely say that Stafford is close enough to where it's a gut call. You can call your shot on this one if you feel strongly enough about Stafford, because the upside is there versus the Ravens, but I will definitely go with Hurts. Appreciate the super chat. And again, sorry I didn't interrupt that question. Bisco, good to see you in here tonight. Appreciate the super chat. Pick 2, JCM, Judkins, Warren, K9. Any trade idea for K9? So I would go with Judkins for sure, and I would also go with Bill Krosky over K9 and Warren. Yeah, and I think that, when it comes to Kenneth Walker, I've done a lot of team breakdowns with teams that have Kenneth Walker, and I will say that there is very much a fine line to trading Kenneth Walker right now, because I will maintain that he does have upside because he's a really good player. He is the better talent between him and Zach Charbonnet. So there's not a huge difference in him versus another middle to lower tier RB2, such as DeAndre Swift, for example, right? I would take Kenneth Walker over DeAndre Swift because he's a better talent and I can see a higher ceiling for him, but his workload isn't nearly as consistent and stable as Swift's. But that's the problem, is that I think most people have really caught on to the frustration that you will experience with Kenneth this year, which is that this is a really good player who's not being used as the workhorse. So I think everybody is in kind of the same position of viewing Kenneth right now. So it makes it hard to trade him. It's one of those situations where it feels like it has to be a package deal. You can't trade Kenneth straight up for Cam Scatterbo, right? Nobody's going to, maybe someone would, but I can't imagine trading anybody Cam Scatterbo for Kenneth Walker, only because Cam Scatterbo sees tons of volume. And he does have upside because, like, he has looked good for the majority of the year. And he also gets pass catching upside. So, like, in a full PPR league, I would never trade you Cam Scadaboo for him. I would never trade you Ashton Genty. I would never trade you, oh, God. I would never trade you Ashton Genty. I would never trade you Quinshon Judkins. And obviously you have him. But I'm just using examples here. Like, there's certain guys that, like, are just kind of not tradable right now, and Kenneth feels like one of them. So I think you're going to have to create a package with Kenneth Walker and maybe like one other wide receiver to upgrade a running back. Like, you might have to get a package where it's like Kenneth Walker and Michael Pittman, and you upgrade to like Ashton Genty, and your wide receiver you get in return is maybe like Chris Olave or something like that. Like, you just kind of have to finagle a trade for Kenneth Walker, because a straight-up trade is not going to benefit you, and nobody else would take it if it really did benefit you. So that's the problem with Kenneth Walker. But I would play this week Judkins and Bill Karofsky. Bill, appreciate the super chat, Bisco. Good to see you in here tonight. Bryant Reed, appreciate the super chat. Would you start A.J. Brown tonight? Completely dependent on who your other options are. I did say this. I started out the live stream by saying that I think A.J. Brown is very playable tonight. He moved up my rankings tonight, and you can see that reflected if you are a premium member at FS Roundup. You can see exactly where he's ranked because premium membership offers you the ability to get live rankings updates. So you can see exactly where he's ranked tonight. And A.J. Brown is a guy that I think is playable, but I'm not playing over someone like Cortland Sutton. I'm not playing him over Quinshon Judkins. I'm not playing him over Michael Pittman or Garrett Wilson or Ashton Genty or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Like, there's definitely a line with A.J. Brown that's not that high. And I will tell you this, like, the funny thing is, like, I have this feeling where it's like A.J. Brown goes off for 20-plus points tonight, and I have a feeling that I'm going to come on here after the game and be like, sorry about that, like, I got it wrong, because the reality with A.J. Brown is he's boom or bust, and he always has been like this, but it feels way more volatile this year than it has in years past. And so for that reason, you have to acknowledge that this guy could go for 25 tonight, but he also could go for 5. So it's just, he's that volatile this year to where he's no longer like a consistent wide receiver one in fantasy, obviously. And you have to factor in the volatility as something that you can't trust. So A.J. Brown, it just depends on who your other options are. It really does. Appreciate the super chat. Alias, appreciate the super chat. Picked up Kraft off waivers during the bye. Do I start him over Ertz this week? Moving forward, can I drop one or just roster both? So with Zach Ertz, I do like to keep him because, like, last week was an outlier. That was like the first week in Jaden Daniels' career where he really didn't look Ertz's way at all. I mean, he had one target in that game. It was really bizarre. It was really, really weird. And I do think that Ertz will continue to play a role in this offense, especially while Terry's out. Now, I did see that Terry McLaurin might play this week. He didn't practice Thursday, so he probably won't. Yeah, I think that I don't want to drop Ertz, but I will always say this, like, every time I do a team breakdown and someone has 2 tight ends on their roster, I always say I don't like having 2 tight ends on my roster unless it's deep. Like, if you're in a 6 bench league, like every team in your league has 6 bench spots, I don't want to keep 2 tight ends. That's just too shallow of a bench to keep 2 tight ends. But if you have 10 bench spots, then yeah, it makes sense to have 2 tight ends. I think that realistically, you just have to go about it smart, because Kraft obviously is the better option on a weekly basis. But with Ertz, you can't trade him right now because of the recent struggles. And I think that he's going to get better. So, like, if this was my team, I wouldn't drop Ertz. I would trade him after he has a good week. The only way that I would personally consider dropping him is if I had just like really, really thin options. Like if you had Amarian Hampton injured, if you had Trey Benson injured, if you had several other guys just that are like clogging up roster spots, that's the only way I would consider that. But without knowing your team, I would say in an ideal world, I would hold on to Ertz, wait till he pops off for a big game, and then sell him. And that's what I'm going to tell you to do, assuming you're not clogged up with tons of injuries on your bench. Appreciate the super chat, but I will say Kraft is definitely the guy that you want. Adrian, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Bo Nix or Love, who will throw more? I mean, they're both going to throw probably minimal because they're going to be crushing the opposing team. Now, I'll tell you this, Adrian, you're in good position right now to ask me this question because I'm dealing with this exact same thing. Oh my gosh, we got another freaking spammer. Poll XR, if you don't stop spamming, I'm gonna silence you too because there's nothing more that anybody dislikes more than someone who comes and spams the chat. So if you can't stop, then I'm just gonna block you too, and you can call me whatever you want to. I'll tell you this, like the decision I'm personally facing is the exact same in one of my dynasty leagues. This is a long-standing dynasty league. I've had this with my like friends from like growing up, and it's my most competitive league easily. And I have Bo Nix and Jordan Love both on a dynasty team, and I'm deciding that. And I'll tell you, I've made a clear decision, and I'll walk you through exactly what went through my head, which is that if I'm thinking about two quarterbacks that are both in similar positions to where they, in theory, should crush both teams. And I would imagine the Jets get crushed by the Broncos and the Bengals get crushed by the Packers this week. So there's going to be limited opportunities for these quarterbacks to throw the ball, particularly in the second half. So the way I think of this is which quarterback do I feel has the better comfort zone this week to play in? So Green Bay, they're coming off a bye week. That's a good thing. And also they're playing at home. That's a good thing. Now Denver is coming off a very emotional win, and they're traveling overseas to go play the Jets. Unfamiliar time zone. They're going to have to get adjusted to that. I don't like that. So that's the reason I decided to make the decision and start Jordan Love in my personal league. In my situation, that's exactly identical to yours. I decided to play Jordan Love because I feel better about him playing in Lambeau this week off a bye week than I do about Bo Nix going overseas, and I hate these overseas games. I feel better about Jordan Love this week, so I'll go Jordan Love. Appreciate the super chat, Adrian. Good to see you in here as always. Okay. By the way, all these stats we're going through on FS Roundup completely free. Go start a start-sit poll. If you don't get your question answered in here tonight, the best way to maximize the time is to go create a start-sit poll on the site for free entirely and get live results and feedback from the rest of the community. Also, go help other people out on their polls as well. Go vote on their polls to help their decisions too. If you want premium features, I offer team breakdowns to premium members. After their first payment has gone through, I provide the team breakdowns. I've gotten tons of requests for team breakdowns, way more than I anticipated, so I am behind on these team breakdowns, so you have to be patient. But you also get to utilize the waiver wire tool, which is automatic, and that's saving people's teams this year. We've gotten tons of great feedback on that. And then also my rankings are updated. Tons of premium features, man. Our site's pretty sweet. JVIII 817. Appreciate the super chat. Start AJ Brown, Keenan Allen, and Bill Krosky on the bench. Yeah, so this is it's a good, again, litmus test for AJ Brown, which is that I have a feeling, man, I'm going to come on here and have to say a lot of apologies because I think AJ Brown will do well tonight. I do think he's got a potential for a really good game. but I'm not going to play him over either of those guys. I'll play Keenan and I'll play Bill Krosky. I just think Keenan's target share has been too consistent. The matchup is good this week versus Miami, and Bill Krosky. On Washington's offense, I already wanted Bill Krosky to do well, and now that he's really, truly, it's undeniable at this point that he is the best running back that they have. So I'm going to go with Bill Krosky over a lot of guys. Because a Washington running back is a good thing because of that offense being that good. And A.J. Brown, again, the reason I'm not going with him is because the volatility has always been there with A.J., but the deterioration of the relationship with the quarterback and the team, and just combine that with a more fluctuating target share, I would say, this year, is concerning to the point where I'm playing a lot of other guys over him. So I'm acknowledging, man, and I'll leave it to you. The rankings are far off enough for me to tell you that A.J. Brown and Bill Krosky are both better options. But if you have a gut feeling with A.J., go with A.J. tonight. I would go with Keenan Allen first, then Bill Krosky, and then A.J. Brown. That's how I would do it. Appreciate the super chat. Isaiah Gadsden, appreciate the super chat. Trade Josh Allen for Jaden Daniels and Kyron Williams. Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, I love Josh Allen. I do. He's the best quarterback in fantasy, but Jaden Daniels, a healthy Jaden Daniels, is an excellent fantasy quarterback as well, and you get Kyron Williams out of the equation. I mean, you're like, the thing with a quarterback is that it's a onesie position, and yes, Josh Allen is the best, clearly, but there's other guys that are having great seasons right now. Jaden Daniels, I think, will be having a great season moving forward, and you get a running back, a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1 on top of that. You can't deny that. That's exactly the move I would try to make. So, yeah, I would do that right there for sure. Appreciate the super chat. Okay, I got to work through these couple more questions because we're running close. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you haven't done so already. Juan Mraz, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Shakir for Saints, running back as a stash. So you're asking me if you would trade Khalil Shakir for Kendre Miller? And the answer is no, I would not do that. I think the thing with Kendre Miller, which is going to be the case with him, is that until Kendre Miller emerges as the lead back, and I don't think that will happen with Alvin Kamara there. Now, maybe they trade Kamara, and it ends up being a bad move, what I'm telling you right now. If that doesn't happen, then I don't want Kendre Miller that bad, because Kendre Miller is still on an offense that's limited. And I will say this, like, the Saints have impressed me this year because they're showing grit, and they're also a pretty efficient offense, all things considered. So, like, I'm not trying to down the Saints offense right now. What I'm telling you is that I don't think that there's enough there for the New Orleans Saints this year to be a very consistent group offensively. So, like, Kendre Miller, yeah, he had 10 carries last week, but it was for 41 yards. He doesn't get in the end zone, and he's not seeing the pass-catching upside. So, like, unless he gets in the end zone, he won't sniff 15 points. So, Khalil Shakir, on the other hand, is playing with Josh Allen, and there's weeks where he gets, like, 9 targets. So, yeah, I would not – if that's what you're asking me, if I would trade Shakir for Kendre Miller, no way. I would not do that. Appreciate the super chat. I will go through a couple more questions as fast as possible. Kincaid or Mason Taylor? I'll go with Dalton Kincaid. Should you drop Pearsall for Ridley since he's always injured? I would not drop Pearsall for Ridley. No chance. JCM or Devonta Smith? I'd go with JCM. Charbonnet, Myers, T. Higgins, or Golden? I would go with Charbonnet. Demo or JMO? I would go with Demo. Trade Tet McMillan for A.J. Brown? I would stick with Tet McMillan. Golden or Jacoby Myers? I would go with Jacoby Myers. Devonta or Warren. If it's Tyler Warren, go with Tyler Warren. If it's Jalen Warren, I'd go with Devonta Smith. Devontae Adams or Jamar Chase, I'd go with Devontae Adams. Scatterboo or J.K. Dobbins, I would go with J.K. easily. Robinson or Henderson. Assuming you're talking about, I'm not sure what Robinson. Obviously, I'd go with Bijan Robinson over Henderson. If you're talking about Demarcus Robinson for the San Francisco 49ers, I would go with Travion Henderson. A.J. Brown or Pitts, I would go with A.J. Brown. That's the situation. I'd go with A.J. Brown. Wandale or Henderson, I would go with Wandale. Odunze or Debo. Oh, those two great options. I'd go with Rome because I think he's got better upside. I think they're both great options though. Flowers for Mason or JCM. I would try to trade for Bill Karofsky first, and then if you can't get Bill Karofsky, I'd probably hold. Not that I don't like Jordan Mason, but I still like Zay Flowers, and I think it's very easy to just let go of Ravens options, assuming they're going to be bad all year. Lamar comes back, I think they turn back into a really good team. Brees Hall, Cam Scatterboo, Travis Etienne. I would go with Travis Etienne. In order, I would go Travis Etienne, Cam Scatterboo, Brees Hall. Waller or Goddard, I would go with Waller. So I'll go ahead and end it there tonight. Let's enjoy the Thursday night game. Hopefully it's good to us again, and I get to come on here after the game and recap a fun game instead of a bad game. Like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out, and on your way out, realistically, go check out all these numbers on FS Roundup, completely free. Go utilize the start-sit polls as well, also completely free. Help other people out on their polls as well. And become a premium member. Get a full team breakdown if you want one from me. Get access to my full top 250 weekly rankings. Waiver wire tool. Tons of other premium features on the site. It's a sweet site. Love you guys. Hopefully after tonight, I will be talking about a fun game and not a bad game. So let's go enjoy ourselves. Peace out, guys. I'll see you later tonight.